Today is April 11, 2019. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes Storage Special Interest Group. As a reminder, this meeting is recorded and posted publicly. On the agenda today, we're just going to go over the items that we've committed to for the 1.15 release. If you are working on any of the items for 1.15, it would be good to be aware of the dates that you are working with, especially considering KubeCon is going to be in the middle of this cycle. So the first important date coming up is the enhancements freeze. This is the date by which you must have any feature that you're working on declared as, make sure you have a issue opened up for it, as well as a KEP approved. And then May 30th is the actual code freeze date. That means all code needs to be committed by then for the feature. So with that, let's go ahead and move to the spreadsheet, and we'll just get a quick status update from folks and where their features are so far. First up, we have the migration engine for CSI, for entry to CSI. I believe David is still out on vacation. Chang or Deep, do you have any updates?
Yeah, so the work we are doing right now is around resizing and handling support for the inline volumes from entry plugins. So making sure that inline volumes can be migrated and putting in the work needed for resizing.
Awesome.
There's also work being done by Jan around attach limits, but that's probably tracked separately, but that's also going to cover migration scenarios.
Okay. I'll leave it here for now, and we can add it somewhere else if needed. Okay, next item is also migration, CI and tests.
So that is not started yet. David will get to it once he's back.
Cool. And let's put the status as started. Next item is CSI out of 3, adding support for offline online resizing volume expansion, moving that to beta. Hemant, any updates on this one?
Yeah, we are working on it, and we have started adding support for drivers. Fabio opened a PR for EBS. It's a work in progress. And I was just scoping out the work needed for 1.15 in the progress sheet, what we need to do. So,
cool. All right, thanks, Hemant. Next item is block volume support, which is going to remain in beta, but we're going to add more tests this quarter. Ben or Misaki, any updates on this?
No updates from me. Yeah, I'm going to review it.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. Next item is CSI pod inline volume support, which will remain in alpha as well. And we're going to add more tests to make sure it actually works. Vlad, any updates on this?
Yes, I've been working on a slew of PRs to refactor a few things internally to make sure that it works and avoid bugs.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next item is scalability testing, which we didn't have an owner for. Anybody interested in helping out with this?
Can I ask what kind of scalability? I mean, there's lots of dimensions of scalability.
Yeah, sure. Michelle, do you want to explain that?
Yeah, sure. I think basically we want to be able to figure out what the limits are, both with various aspects. One aspect is the maximum number of volumes that you can mount on a node. Another one is the maximum number of volumes a single pod can request. And then there's also just maximum number of volumes in the whole cluster.
So what you're saying, we don't even know what these numbers are, much less how to make them better?
Yeah.
This is very important work.
Yikes. I'm a little interested in this, but it seems to me that this is going to be so deployment dependent, so plugin dependent, so protocol dependent. Like certain types of plugins will probably have much lower maximums than others.
Yeah, it will be. And so I think the point of this is that we need to figure out how to write these tests in a way that we can, substitute any plugin underneath.
Oh, you mean
And then,
have some sort of an automated test, and then we could.
And then people can go substitute their storage class for, whatever driver they're using, and they can run these tests against their own volumes too.
Yeah, trying to think through what that would entail, because like you're going to need a relatively large cluster to actually hit certain limits, I imagine.
Yes.
And so it's not the kind of thing that you can test on your laptop.
Yeah, exactly. So at least for like practical purposes, we currently have the SIG scalability team has a test bed that can support up to 5,000 nodes right now.
Okay.
But it's right now that test bed is all in Google Cloud, so you're kind of limited to what Google Cloud can do.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, for if you wanted to test iSCSI, you would need like an iSCSI thing that can work there, or NFS, or GCP, or GCEPD. Like each, unless you can have a storage platform that works in that environment, you'd have a hard time testing specific types of volumes.
Yeah. So at least for like practical purposes, right now our test bed is limited to things that GCE can test. But ideally, we want to make these tests generic so that people can end up running them on their own platforms as well.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can't volunteer to own this because it seems like a big job, but I'm very interested.
Okay, we'll throw your name down as a reviewer then. And if you know of anyone who might be interested in owning this, let us know. In the meantime, we'll mark it.
Yes, as a perk, you really get access to a 5,000 node cluster.
Do not mine bitcoins. All right, next up is auditing CSI PV and PVC code related to issues 72.347. There were a bunch of proposed fixes that came out of this that need to be implemented. Michelle, were you able to confirm an owner for this?
I think I was talking with Ye Ching, and he's a little busy, but he said he will try to find some time to work on it.
Okay. So we'll see. Next item is CSI and entry per node volume attach limits, which are going to be remaining in beta but being redesigned. Is Jan on the line?
Yes. I started writing CAP and I plan to publish it tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you, Jan. We'll keep an eye out for that. Next item is CSI volume capacity usage metrics. So let's see, CSI volume capacity usage metrics. This is an unowned area. Is anybody interested in picking this up?
Humble has a PR open for it, actually.
Oh, great.
So I need to review it. It's in progress, and there's no need of CAP for this.
So this would mostly be just wiring up the existing kind of APIs that are already there for this.
Yeah. There's no alpha beta. It'll be directly GA.
Interesting. Okay. I'd like to look at that PR.
Okay.
Do we need a enhancement?
We haven't opened like traditionally like enhancements for matrix, and this is like stat matrix that already exists for other drivers. So
I think if it's purely like operational metrics, that makes sense. For something like volume capacity, which is exposed through kind of PVCs, I guess it depends on whether there's new APIs being added or not.
No, there's no new API added.
Okay. All right. We can discuss offline. Next item
so I actually have a question on this. So this is actually using existing the volume metrics feature in Kubernetes. You just want to add that to CSI. So,
it uses the get volume stats. There's a node level call, right? So it uses that RPC call to get the stats information and then just publish it. Like it doesn't even publish. It's like if Prometheus calls it, then it will publish it. Whoever asks for it, then it will make the RPC call and it will return the data that there's already a format defined in Kubernetes. So it doesn't implement it. It just implements a concrete implementation that uses CSI RPC call. That's all. Matrix. Matrix.
Because I look at the one that is implemented, that is in tree, there's no driver specific implementation. It's all, I think, getting that from some
it's just using
common,
DF.
Okay, yes, it's like a common function call, but
but for CSI, we can't assume that like all the volumes are a mount point, and we can
right, of course,
do a
DF
DF on
this,
it. So.
So I think this is actually related to the volume house. So I think this would be part of that. Kind of related. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So this implements matrix provider interface over CSI RPC. That's all. So it's like
Okay. Yeah, we should probably sync up later.
Sure.
Thanks.
Next item we have is per PVC provisioning secrets. Michelle, do we have an owner for this one?
I know Luis was interested in this.
Okay.
But I don't know if he volunteered time to take ownership of it.
Got it. Luis doesn't happen to be on the call. Luis? Okay. So we'll follow up offline, hopefully get an owner for that. Next item is creating a snapshot delete volume finalizer when snapshot is being created.
Oh, so this one, so I have addressed the comments. I just need to get reviewed again.
Okay.
I wonder if Yang has time to take a look at this, because this is very similar to the finalizer that you implemented for the PVC.
I can probably review that, but
okay.
I doubt I have time for implementation.
Oh, no, not it's already done. It's just need the review. So somebody has already reviewed it, that gave comments. So after that, I have changed it. So I will assign that to you for review. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Shane. So we'll mark that as started. Next item is snapshot execution hook. Any updates on that?
So we had a lot of discussions. We also synced up with SIG apps again. We're thinking that, we will be working on this execution hook. And then SIG apps, they are working on this application snapshot. So this execution hook actually can be used by both volume snapshot and application snapshot. And then we also talked a little bit about the group snapshot, CG. So that will be the next thing that we can look at. So if we have the group snapshot, then the application snapshot can also try to make those calls. So that this will be like the next step, if we can.
Cool. Seems like solid progress there. Mark that as started. Do you need a enhancement issue? Yes, and you already
We have it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
We just need to update that one.
Perfect. Next item is snapshot quota.
Have not started yet.
Okay. I think related to this, people have been asking me about kind of storage pools, like if I want to manage how much storage I have, that kind of thing.
Oh, so it's that's more like a total pool capacity. Not this one might be for individual resource, I think. But okay, but I'll think about that.
Okay, next item is automating sidecar release and test process, or CSI out of tree. This is adding end-to-end tests.
Yeah, this is in progress.
Okay. Next up, we have refactoring Kublet's device plugin to reconciliation model. This is also in progress. Tara did another round of, she addressed all the feedback that I gave her, and then I had some more feedback, so it's still in progress. Next item is enable PVC as a data source volume cloning. This, as far as I understand, is also started. John, any updates on this? So I approve the KEP, and I think what we need is an enhancement issue here.
Oh, I have a question about this enhancement issue. For the execution hook, I believe we are using the same one for snapshot. Do we need a new one? Or?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think if it's going to be tracked as kind of a separate feature from snapshots, then yes. Because snapshot itself is not, it already exists. This is like new functionality we're adding, so we should add a separate one.
Okay. All right, I'll add that.
Okay, I'll clear this one out then. The enhancement issue is basically how the Kubernetes release team keeps track of what is going into the release, and for release notes and documentation and all that kind of stuff. So it's important that we get that right.
Okay, thanks.
Next item is volume snapshot namespace transfer. John is also working on this. This is a generic mechanism for being able to transfer either volumes or snapshots between namespaces, ideally some sort of handshake. John, does anybody know what the status of this is? Whether... Okay. I'll mark it as no update and not started. The next item is group volume snapshots, consistency groups. Shing, any update on that one?
So we will need to talk about that soon, but we just kind of mentioned that we need to discuss about this.
Okay.
But execution hook first.
Makes sense. I think that's the correct priority. This is a P3. And it's a design, so we don't need to open an enhancement issue here yet.
Okay.
Next up is populator, generic populator. Data store. I haven't seen any updates here either. Okay, next item is, excuse me, CSI out of tree moving NFS driver to a separate repo. Specifically, the work that was remaining was updating to CSI 1.0, adding deployment scripts, adding CI/CD, cutting new branch, and putting deprecation notices on the old repo. Mathusin or Pratik, any updates on this? Either for iSCSI or for NFS?
I know John has been working on the iSCSI stuff.
Okay. And any updates on the fiber channel one? Either Matt Wong or Mathusin? Okay. An interesting thing for folks to keep in mind when they were creating their CSI drivers is how your driver will react if the node suddenly becomes unavailable. If the node hangs, are you dependent on that node to be able to recover? I was talking to Ben about this offline, and they have some cool things that they do for their driver. Or are considering doing for their driver. But also something for others to keep in mind is, you know, in Kubernetes, the assumption is not that the node is going to exist forever. Something bad might happen to a given node. It might hang because of some reason. And if that happens, Kubernetes will move the workload to a different node, and it'll tell the volume subsystem to move the volume. And if your driver depends on basically the old node being able to do something, then you may end up in conditions where that workload is never able to be moved because the old node is not available.
Well, it's actually, I mean, that is a problem, but there's another related situation, which is in the case of a split brain, where the old node is actually still alive, but Kubernetes can't talk to it. Kubernetes will move the load anyways, and then you'll have two things trying to use the same volume, and you better make sure that only one of them wins.
Yep.
And that it's easy to get that wrong.
Yep.
Okay, I had a question about these protocol plugins. So these are just node plugins by themselves, right? Like no controller attached to them. Is it?
As far as I've seen, I think they're all just dumb controller or node plugins. Yes, they're
So
not.
the idea is people will use them with a provisioner separately.
Right. So there are actually two parts for each one of these drivers. There's a repo that contains the common mount libraries, and then there is these reference implementations. The reference implementation doesn't have a provisioner, and so the idea is people can use that as a basic kind of driver if they really want to, or storage vendors can take that common library and use that to build their own driver and add their own external provisioner or whatever they need.
With respect to what you were saying about nodes dying or becoming uncommunicative, what happens with the lifecycle calls for that volume or PVCs that were attached?
So it depends on if you implement attach or not. If you've implemented attach, then you will get a controller unpublish or a detach call for the old volume after 6 minutes of waiting for a clean unmount, which will never happen because the original node is locked up. Now, I was talking to Michelle about this, and she said that might actually no longer happen if you are a read-write once volume. Is that true, Michelle?
You mean if do we issue multiple attaches to different
Well,
nodes?
do we issue a detach? The detach isn't going to be blocked, right?
What do you mean blocked?
So if you have a read-write once volume and then we try to wait for an unmount, we're not going to detach, but we'll wait a maximum of 6 minutes. And after the 6 minutes, we unilaterally detach. That's not affected by whether it's multi-writer or single writer, correct?
I'm not quite positive. I remember there was one issue that Chang found where we would never detach even after the 6 minutes.
Right. Okay. So in the happy case, what's supposed to happen is that we'll wait a maximum of 6 minutes after the pod is deleted to give it a chance to unmount. Then we'll call detach, which for CSI is controller unpublish on the old volume. And if that succeeds, then we call controller publish for the new node on the same volume, and then node publish, or node stage and node publish.
Great, as would be expected. I just was curious. Thank you.
Sure.
One
And thanks for the
quick
warning
question.
about
I don't.
detach may not be called.
I don't want to rat hole, but do I remember correctly that there was talk about shortening that 6-minute timeout with a cloud provider hook or a node informer hook that the cloud platform could tell you that the host was down for sure and short circuit that 6 minutes?
Yeah, there was a big discussion around this. Jing has been kind of guiding it a little bit. The proposal was, hey, if we know for certain that a node is down, we should just, flush things out much more quickly. So there's a proposal out for some sort of taint to apply to nodes that could be used as a way to say, hey, this node is down for certain. You don't actually need to wait for it. That hasn't gone anywhere yet. I haven't seen an owner for it. I know Node team is interested in this as well, but I haven't seen any traction on it recently. I think Shay, I don't know if he's on the call, Shai, he was also interested in this and trying to drive it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next item is non-recursive volume ownership. Hemant, any updates on this?
Hemant is out already, but he told me that he plans to do only design this quarter.
Okay. And that's the intention.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item is file permission handling for Windows. Deep, any updates on that?
Nothing specific. I guess
Okay.
we'll just think of that came up as his.
Yep, makes sense. This is a lower priority, so. Next item is revisiting UID, GID handling with volumes. Brad, any updates on that?
Yeah, so we've actually got the work okayed with our PM. Well, we passed it up to PM, so this is something that we are going to look at more aggressively. And I apologize. We've been blocked on a lot of our product work, and
yeah, no worries at all. I completely understand. We got internal priorities and external priorities. We got to balance them. All right. Next up is CSI Library, moving the mount library to an external common repo. Travis, are you on the line by any chance?
I am. This is definitely progressing. Actually, earlier this week, end of last week, another PR went in. I've still been kind of chunking this up into smaller pieces and figuring out what items in the mount package need to be moved elsewhere to within KK, so that we'll just be left with something that can be moved out. So the last thing that moved was the namespace enter, or the in-center mounter. So that was moved. I have a pending open PR that moves a global constant that's still waiting on review on the Windows side. Michelle's been very helpful around that. I had one open question that I wanted to ask here because I might get an answer quickly that hasn't been answered on Slack, which is the next thing I want to move is the exec mounter. And so the question is there any reason that a CSI driver would want to use the exec mounter? So it wraps other mounters but my understanding is that CSI should be using mount propagation. So I don't see any reason why a CSI plugin would use the exec mounter.
Sorry, what does the exec mounter do?
It wraps other mounters. So it wraps the Linux mounter, it wraps the Windows mounter, and
Got it.
It's used by some of the other in-tree plugins to basically shell out for mounting and unmounting. And I can't find any other uses of it other than a subset of the in-tree drivers. And so I don't think a CSI plugin should ever use that.
Why not?
It will be used for Windows scenarios because there the mount propagation support is not there. So we use something like make link to.
Okay.
We basically exec shell out and specifically run a command.
Okay.
Yeah. So that might be a context where it's.
So then I probably shouldn't move that. So that's the question, and I was hoping to get some feedback on Slack for why maybe not to. So that's maybe something I don't have to do. Okay. So I will keep at this. But yeah, it's moved along.
Okay, awesome.
I think one more comment, Saad, I think, is that enough people have asked about it and people have pinged me privately about it. I think we should bump the priority on this to at least P2. It really needs to be done this release.
Okay. I mean, we can bump it to P1 if that's appropriate. What do you prefer?
I was going to say I'm going to try and make it happen either way. So I don't know what the right call there is, but yeah, I think it needs to be done.
Okay. All right, next item. Thank you, Travis, for the update. Next item is volume expansion for Stateful Sets, which is design only. Hemant, were you able to follow up with them to get them unblocked? Oh, Hemant's not on the line anymore. Jan, do you happen to know?
I don't know.
Okay, no worries. We'll get an update on that next time. Okay, next item is CSI volume health.
Yeah, so I can give an update. So I did talk to Nick. He said he's still interested in work on this. He should have some time to do upstream work. So there's one thing he's designed. He uses annotation to mark a unhealthy volume, but I think that's probably not recommended to use annotations. So I think we can use taints. I need to talk to Jing about that because she has a cap on the taints for PVC and PV. So maybe we can use that.
Okay. That seems reasonable off the top of my head, but yeah, definitely follow up with Jing and then we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Thank you. And this is design as well this quarter.
Yeah.
Next item is post-GA in-tree topology. The work here was switching out the default storage class to use late binding and backfill older PVs with node affinity. Any update, Michelle or Deep?
No, I still need to follow up on this.
Okay. And this is lower priority, so that makes perfect sense. Next item is pass ownership created by metadata from stateful sets to PVCs. This is something Haley was interested in helping out with to spread across topology domains for stateful sets. Haley, any updates on this?
Yeah, just starting a draft with the cap and seeing what the possibilities are, figuring out the naming.
Cool.
One one piece that'll be interesting for that is, today, because ownership doesn't pass down, operators don't garbage collect PVCs. And so kind of the expected behavior is that when you delete a primary resource, the PVCs stick around. If we pass ownership, I think that means that the PVCs will start getting garbage collected. So I think it'll be important to make sure that like the existing behaviors retained if we introduce that.
Yeah, and we've noted that's it's probably not going to necessarily be the owner reference. It's not going to be called an owner reference, or it's not going to be. Yeah. That's kind of the thing is the struct it's gonna be so similar to that. Like, do you make a new field that's just that same struct, or that sort of the way it's unfolding right now? How to handle that? Is it the same thing or is it a different thing, basically?
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's Michelle that thought about that specifically. I don't want to take credit away.
Great. Thank you for that update. Next item is Pluggable end-to-end test framework documentation. Is Methusen on the line, or does anybody have an update for this?
I'm sorry, this is the CSI Pluggable framework?
Yeah, this is the Pluggable end-to-end test framework. I think there was some documentation that needed to be done here.
Yep, so documentation's in PR.
Nice.
I think we were just looking for maybe a review. It's going into the Kubernetes.io CSI docs.
Yes.
That's appropriate.
Yep. Okay, so we can certainly help get that reviewed. Cool, thank you, Brad. Next item is CSI entry read-only handling. We were looking for an owner here. This will become important once we have cloning or populators, which we're working on for this quarter. Anybody interested in working on this? I think if you've looked at the Kubernetes API, you'll notice that there's like 4 different places you can specify the read-only flag. And what each read-only flag does is pretty kind of random. You have to really know what you're doing in order to make them all work. So if that annoys you and you want to help fix it, this is a good opportunity. Okay, next item is CSI Alpha Beta GA designation. This has been started in the CSI community. We've had multiple discussions about what we can do to try to basically add alpha functionality without polluting the main spec. And there is a proposal that James is a proof of concept that James is working on. If you're interested, go look at that in the container storage interface spec repo. He has a pull request out right now, so. Next item is support containerized CSI node plugins with storage proxy executable for Windows. Deep, any updates on that?
Sorry. Yeah, basically I started off with a GCEPD plugin, and like a precursor to this was just porting all of that to Windows and making sure the node plugin is getting picked up by the node driver registrar. So the plugin mechanism through kubelet is working. So I got all of that set up and working where it's getting registered. So the driver registrar side is up, and the next phase is actually plumbing in the storage proxy in there. So yeah, the socket communication on the Windows side surprisingly just worked, which was
wow, that is super awesome. This is huge. Cool, thank you for that.
It did require certain changes, so I'll just.
Okay.
Yeah.
And those changes are going to be to Kubernetes core
In driver registrar mainly.
and driver registrar. Okay. Okay. Awesome.
Do you think this needs a kep?
Um,
Out of tree work, but
I think it doesn't hurt if you want to. If not, it is out of tree work, so I don't want to throw in more process in front of you. It is. I know you're doing a lot of work, so I'll leave it up to you.
I'll try to whip one up. Yeah.
Okay.
When you say driver registrar, which driver registrar? The node one?
The node driver registrar.
Okay. Yeah.
So I ported the node driver registrar to run on Windows, and then got the socket paths all fixed up, because everything in Windows has a different path style, and all the Golang APIs use, arbitrarily Unix path and Windows path. So
Is there a like a specific version of Windows that the Unix domain sockets are going to work on?
yes, so it's Windows Server 2019 with the
Okay.
Golang 112. That's the only one that started supporting listening.
2019. Cool. All right, next item is CSI entry metric support.
I think this is the same one as the one Hemant talked about earlier. CSI volumetrics. There's one
I
item.
think that was usage metrics.
Oh, is it different? Okay.
Yeah, I think that was more about how much capacity do you have on each volume.
Okay.
And this one is more about what are the generic operational metrics that we can pass through. But I'm not 100% certain on that. Is Humble on the line?
Is this like metrics on the like how many creates, how many attaches, how many detaches kind of metrics?
Those we already have. The Kubernetes framework manages those automatically for all CSI drivers. I think the ask here is for kind of more custom metrics per driver, but I'm not sure Humble or Hemant would be able to clarify.
Maybe things like, read and write transactions and average IO size and things like that.
Yeah.
But that would need a new CSI RPC.
Yep. Yeah, we need to think this through. I think there's a couple ways we could do it. We could open up a hole and say, hey, you can pass through any generic metrics with, that, I don't know, maybe like Prometheus format or something. But then we have to worry about wiring that through all the way in the system. That doesn't really buy us much. We could also say, hey, there are specific metrics that we're interested in pushing out to Kubernetes users, and add in specific RPCs for those. I think we need to think more about this. Okay, that is all that we have for the 1.15 updates. Let's move on. We have a item here. Is Gary on the line?
Yep. Yeah, this is really just a. It's Jerry, by the way.
Oh, Jerry, sorry.
Everything I would say is already written there. I was at the HEPEX workshop out in San Diego, and I get a blurb of what HEPEX is under there. It's basically the high energy physics engineering team that keeps the hundreds of petabytes of data and compute clusters running. Give a link to the attendees. A lot of people in Slack, Brookhaven, Fermi, Desi, all over the world, Keck in Japan. There were a lot of storage-related talks in case anyone's interested. I just put the link there, and they're pushing the envelope. Needless to say, the reason I bring it up, brought it up for here is just so people are related to it. But I wanted to point out that there's some use of Kubernetes. There's a lot more use of HT Condor, which was specifically built in the community. But in terms of runtime, Singularity is the runtime of choice, not Docker. So people were aware of that. You know, this is just sort of informational. With respect to Singularity, if you've never heard of it, it's not Docker. It's a not Docker, though it can take a Docker image and convert it and run it. It has the advantage that it's run in the user's space. You know, you don't need root access to run Singularity containers. And so the punchline is there is a CRI implementation. I'm just starting to talk with them about it because the high energy physics wants to be able to use Kubernetes, but with Singularity, not Docker. And so, which leads to the final question: if anyone's had a chance to play with it, if they've had any experience using CSI with it, I don't know the maturity level. And most importantly, why I'm mentioning it now is if I have a call with them tomorrow. So if anybody has any questions, curiosity, points they'd like clarified, please reach out to me, and I'll include that in my call.
That's super interesting. I haven't heard of Singularity before this, so I'd be curious to see how it actually works if you ever want to do a presentation or something for this group.
Sure.
Cool.
That'd be fun.
And in terms of making it work with CSI, I think the biggest requirement we tend to have is being able to run a container that is capable of doing mount namespace propagation. Basically, if you set up a mount inside of the container, you should have that somehow be able to be shared outside the container to the host machine. And as long as the container has some way to be able to do that, CSI should work. That tends to be the most kind of specific container runtime specific thing. So right now, Windows containers, for example, don't support that, which is why Deep is working on this proxy to try to work around that until and that is supported in Windows, but something to keep an eye on.
Cool. All right. Again, if anyone has anything, any curiosity or questions, my call tomorrow with them, I think, is midday. It's I forget what time. Anyway, tomorrow Eastern time, I think 11. Yeah, 11:45 Eastern time. So shoot me a question before then, and I'll include it in my call.
Cool. And do people have a way to get in touch with you, your contact information or anything?
I put my email address.
Oh, perfect. Yep. All right. All right. Well, reach out to Jerry if you have interest in this. And thank you very much for...
And if anyone has any curiosity, I'm going to be turning my focus to this now. I know, by the way, I have my AFS proof of concept working. I demonstrated it to them. So at some point, I'll have the Aura Store/AFS CSI driver added to the list of ones that exist.
Oh, nice. All right. Anything else? Okay. If there's nothing else, then we'll call it and give you 7 minutes back in your day. Take care.